We are on this, baby.
Yeah, you know it. All right.
Like proper podcasters.
Yeah, we're like professionals, only not at all, even remotely.
You know, someone might attribute that attribute to us, but it wouldn't be us.
I mean, if you take professional as just like one who has done the job before, I suppose.
If you've received income for doing it, usually is what I would assume is a professional, which I don't think we have.
If you think you're making money on this show, you're so wrong. We are actually kind of like, we're paying to do this in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, time is money.
Well, not only time, but like, you know, we're paying Humble Bundle, and then we're giving out our games this month. That was the thing that we did.
Yeah. We did. We're starting to give out some games to all you active listeners. If you're interested, follow us on Twitter.
Come on.
And
okay, here's the deal.
Come to our Discord.
We can plug, but we have to introduce ourselves first. Okay?
Nah, they don't need to know who we are. We are the ambiguous bodies that float inside your ears and present you with the opportunity to earn free games.
Hi there, it's Editor David coming at you again, regrettably the night of the podcast. We recorded it earlier today, and I'm here because we didn't say our names, and we should have. So, my name is David Baxter, my co-host is Johnny Bartlett. Anyway, back to the show. Sorry, we're a bunch of knuckleheads. Would you like free games? That's right, follow our Twitter and our Reddit and our Discord and all of the things, and you one day might get one of our free games.
Oh, it's such a good deal, I promise you.
Sign the deal with the devil.
Exchange your support for our
eternal and dying gratitude
stuff.
for
Let's be
stuff,
real.
Though. I mean,
you're all consumers. We know what you want. You don't want our support and gratitude. You want stuff.
We know you're a slut for stuff, and we will give you stuff. Okay?
We'll give stuff all day long. We got so much stuff to give.
Don't promise them that much stuff. We don't have that much stuff in the budget.
Oh, shit. Wait, we have a budget now?
I mean, like, our budget is like our bank account, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're, like, heavily out of work, so...
And I'm super unemployed, so... Thanks, David.
Have you applied?
I mean, I did apply for unemployment, and it did finally go through. Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of hard to get a job doing anything.
Yeah.
Truck drivers are doing great. They were having a bad time there for a minute before COVID, and now it's all the rage for truck drivers.
You know, someone's got to keep the infrastructure running.
Until automation takes over.
Yeah. World's a weird place. We're going down a weird path.
Well, you know, automation actually has a lot to do with the games that we're playing this month.
It really does. Automation, I mean, there's Zachatronic games, so of course automation has a play.
All of his games are about automation in some way.
Yeah, it is literally just like, how can people be machines?
Or how can people develop machines to sort of help themselves?
How will technology be the inevitable catalyst of the revolution?
Yeah, dude. You gotta get him on the podcast.
God, I would love... Yo, Zachatronics?
Zachatronics, buddy pal.
If you're listening, if this has happened to stumble in your feed at some point in time, some way, somehow, like, hit us up, DM us, because, like, we would love to have a huge discussion with you about, like...
I'm gonna pick that little brain.
Yeah, the world and technology's role in it, and people and all that jazz.
Yeah, especially, I also just am curious to hear about, like, because he has been with Humble Bundle for so long. Like,
yeah.
I got his game Space Chem in 2011, and it was one of the first Humble Bundles ever. And, like, he has been with them for so long, I'd almost be curious to hear what he has to say about his relationship with just, like, that company as well, because we have so much to do with that company, at least with our podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be fascinating.
Yeah, sort of an insider perspective.
Well, should we jump into this?
Sure, that seems like a good segue.
Yeah, it does. Insider perspective.
Yeah.
Speaking of insiders and their perspective, this month's games.
They are Gris.
Molex Synth.
Raiden V Director's Cut.
Whoop Whoop, This is the Police 2.
Truberbrook.
Driftland, The Magical Revival.
Capitalism II.
Hitman 2.
Ooh. Shoppe Keep 2.
The Bard's Tale 4, director's cut.
And Turok 2 Seeds of Evil.
And then, of course, Opus Magnum.
Whoa. That's a lot of games.
Yeah, and I tried to read them as obnoxiously as possible, so if you've tuned out at this point, then I'm not surprised. And if
that
you're
was
still
your most
here,
obnoxious? Come on.
I mean, okay, we could have. I've got what I call my universal accent, in which it's every accent at once, and I could do that.
Sure. Can I hear it? I want to hear it just for Opus Magnum.
Oh, okay. Opus Magnum.
Fuck. Perfect. All right. Cool. Let's get into it.
All right, let's get into it. You want to take us away with Gris to begin with?
Yeah, man. Gris was cool. Gris is a game by Normata Studios with help from Bitworks. This is their first game, and it is published by Devolver, which I mentioned just because I love Devolver as a publisher. They were there in the last bundle, too, with my friend Pedro. This is a very aesthetically cool-looking game, man. It's for people who really enjoy just kind of short aesthetic platformers. And I am just going to say that this might hit really hard, especially if you're dealing with, like, the death of a close family member, actually. Because I started to realize, and this is getting into spoiler territory, so just know that I think this game, and I have a lot of evidence to back this up, but is a metaphor for grief. And I really enjoyed that like this game sort of took, and it's something that I've seen before, mind you. There was this shmup game, I wish I remembered the name of it, but it was the 5 Stages of Grief. It might have just been called Grief or Sorrow or something like that.
The game I was referring to in this segment was Solace. It was made by students at DigiPens, the Institute of Technology. Anyway, back to the show.
And it was like a shmup where you went through like denial, and you went through anger, and then bargaining, and all the different stages leading finally to acceptance. And this game has that same sort of feeling from the color palette as well, which has this sort of very beautiful watercolor sort of aesthetic to it that is just hard to look away from, man. My eyes were just like pasted on the screen the whole time I played this game. I expected it to be a lot longer, but honestly, just how short it was just like this little sweet contained story that like didn't last any longer than it needed to, and I really liked that about it. It was divided into kind of 4 to 5 main sections, and each section is, I think, reinforced to be a stage of grief by the Steam achievements, which go through the different stages from the beginning to the end of the game. And the mechanics also reinforce this idea, because there's no death in this game. It's like a Metroidvania-style game where you're kind of exploring and then getting new powers and then using those powers to explore in other new areas. But it uses that as a sort of way to sort of, as a metaphor of growing and sort of overcoming and adapting to challenges that are in front of you, and sort of like taking this young girl and sort of saying like, all right, well, she's getting blown away by the wind in this segment, so what does she do to adapt? She turns into like this heavy cube. And then later on, she needs to get higher up to this other spot, so she learns to jump. And then later on, when there's no other like kind of way forward, you learn how to sing again, and you learn how to speak again, as if your character had been mute the whole game up until that point because like of the trauma that they had experienced. And then once you can sing, you like flowers start growing around, and you're able to like sort of affect the environment in new ways, and sort of like the world comes alive as your character comes alive. And I thought that was all really cool. There's also this is again a spoiler, an ending that is a secret ending that you get once you collect all the different collectibles. I didn't personally get it. I did just look it up because I didn't have the time. But when you do, it reveals that all of the stars that you're collecting in the game that you assemble into constellations in the sky are the constellations that you, the main character, Gris, would look at with her mother before she died.
Aww.
And so
Fuck.
the whole game is sort of coming to a sense of realization from the sort of oncoming sense of grief that sort of, it follows you around, and it takes multiple forms of like an eel and a sparrow that sort of chases you. And then at the end, you finally overcome it.
That sounds amazing. Fuck.
Yeah, it's a really, really cool game, and I appreciate games that like are not afraid to be short, that have just something to say about the world, and they say it and they go. Like, I really respect that.
And it seems like a really like artistic and beautiful metaphor to capture it all in.
Yeah, and it was just so like it felt like a director had something that they wanted to say about like a personal life experience that they could only tell through a game. And that's really cool.
Yeah, it's really interesting seeing how those like really personal stories like that translate into such a seemingly universal medium that like puts players so much in control that it seems like they'd have to be closer to the event in order to really understand it, but it still successfully conveys the message and everything.
So, and it's super chill. It's just really fun and pleasant and pretty. So I highly recommend it if that sounds like something that you would enjoy, because chances are you probably will.
Hell yeah. All right, well let's ease into a little bit of Zachatronics here, right?
Yeah, we got another Zachatronics.
Oh baby, we got 2 of them this month, and God, these ones, both of these games, if you've been struggling to play a Zachatronics game, these games are great for you. They're not as
lower bar of entry.
Yeah. There's a much less lower. There's a lower bar of I'm just repeating the thing you said at this point. You take it. You win this one. You got it.
MOLEK-SYNTEZ is a game by Zachatronics. You make chemicals that eventually get to be more illicit, from what I hear. I never played it myself.
So Molex-SYNTEZ is like it's interesting because I thought it was originally one of Zachatronics' early games, but after looking up the date, it's actually one of his most recent games, and it's so interesting seeing his like development and what's led him to this place, because Molex-SYNTEZ presents itself as something entirely different than all the other works I've seen him do, because it's this like very minimalistic and sort of abstract storytelling that most of his other games didn't have. They have like cutscenes and dialogue trees and stuff, but this game is literally just you solve a puzzle and you get a black box with some white text that gives you like a line of dialogue, and that's it. There's no other information given. And I found that fascinating because you have to like extrapolate so much from the things you're doing in the game and what is happening and the progression of the gameplay and not just the dialogue. And it gets into all these themes and ideas of, it's a reoccurring thing in Zachatronics games of medicine and pharmaceuticals and the role that drugs play in our lives. And what's a good drug versus a bad drug, and how the same drugs that get us high are just like a few atoms away from the same drugs that kill us.
Yeah.
And it's super fascinating, and it's this idea of like from the very minimal dialogue you get, you understand that the world has collapsed, and a predominant cause of that was the drug industry and the way they regulated and controlled drugs and what they released to the public and what they deemed as illegal. And you find your character is in this sort of like anarcho state of recreating all the drugs from the old world. And there's this sort of implication on his responsibility of recreating these, and what does it mean, and how much power does he have? Yeah, it's super cool. And you get all of this just from like very minimal lines of dialogue.
It's like if you could recreate like the splitting of the atom for like the first time. And like
exactly,
like would you do it? Like shit, man.
And yeah, and it's so great because like the character is angsty, and like you get a line of dialogue that's like they'll see how much power I really have now. And then you get another line of dialogue that's like, the kid stole my formaldehyde, what would they want with that?
To hide a body? Store it? I don't know.
It's so interesting. Yeah, this sort of like dichotomy of this like weird angsty sort of anarcho character and what he's doing and the way it plays into his role in society. And then like this whole background narrative of the world collapsing and where you are now. It's so weird. And you can track so much of the character's development simply through the puzzles. Like that is the heart of this game, is knowing the chemical compositions of what you're making and what those drugs are, because you go from like making really simple stuff like oxygen to making like MDMA. Like, so the jump is insane. You're going from like making, you know, insulin or whatever, and then all of a sudden you're making fucking DMT.
They're only like, I mean, if you really think about it from like sort of a chemist perspective, they're only like a couple of operations and chemical sort of equations away from being those substances. Like,
exactly. And like, as you're solving the puzzles, you realize that it's like, oh, I put 6 carbon atoms in this orientation, but moving this one there, putting a nitrogen here, and then an oxygen here, all of a sudden made it DMT.
Fuck, I really love chemistry too, so this game sounds like way cool.
It's so cool. It's fascinating, and just like trying to parse together the storyline and everything. Oh, it's totally incredible. And I think it is definitely worth it for anyone who wants a much lighter entry into Zachatronics, but that still makes you think about these sort of issues.
Rock on, man. So a good entry point for Zachatronics.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Speaking of entry points, the next game up on the list here, Raiden V Director's Cut, developed by Moscow Ltd, who previously made Raiden 4 and Raiden 3, as well as Calidrius Blaze. All 3 of those are just really, you know, bullet hell shmup games. So they're all kind of like Ryden games in a way. This game, I was kind of surprised by, because normally shmup games are known for their difficulty, and this one was not hard, like at all.
Shmup games are?
Like bullet hell, like
Yeah.
shmup games, yeah. And like this one was not hard at all, even remotely. The reason why is because I think design-wise it's kind of buggered a little bit by the fact that there's infinite respawns, and you can just infinitely respawn and get to the end of the game. It wants you to replay to get a higher score, but that just isn't as valuable of a thing for me as a player than perhaps it might have been if I would lived in like the 80s or something, where points mattered a lot more for games. And I just don't, I have no desire to try to get like a high score. And also there's like really weird mechanics in this game that are completely unique to this one. Like there's a cheer system that if you like press a button in the game when somebody else does some cool things, then you'll give them a cheer that they can then use to like destroy a whole bunch of stuff on screen.
Huh.
So it's sort of like this semi-asynchronous multiplayer mechanic where like just by pressing a button you'll give other people things, but that just basically means that if no one's playing the game, then you just don't get a bunch of upgrades to your thing as you're playing the game, and it makes it objectively harder. So, like, I see kind of why they released it during the Humble Bundle, because that gives a whole bunch of people more copies of the game to make that cheer mechanic actually function the way that it's fucking supposed to. So I did get cheered at a lot while I was playing this game, and that's probably thanks to this bundle.
That's so fun.
Because it does have mixed reviews on Steam, and I think that a lot of people were sort of railing against the same sort of things that I was having problems with. But that being said, if you're new to the genre, I feel like this is actually a pretty decent like shmup game in that sense, because there's very little risk to like you know, you're not gonna like lose a ton of progress every single time you die. You can play the whole thing in an evening and just get to the end, and then it's kind of fun. There are multiple endings too, but like I honest to God can't figure out how to go down the different paths, because it's just a single straight path that you constantly shoot things down, and there are multiple different paths and endings, but I don't know how to get them. How do you there's no multiple choice answers in a shmup game, you know? But it's sort of like the idea, if you've never played a shmup game before and you're just wondering why the hell I keep even saying that, the basic idea with these games is that you're pretty much always shooting with one button, and that button is like your primary attack. And the only time that you don't want to shoot is to collect resources. Like you stop shooting and then things like hover into you. And it's sort of like this yin-yang of like you want to be always shooting until you have to collect resources, and then you keep shooting. And then on top of that, you also have like bombs that you can use that are just like a wave clear instantaneously, so you have to kind of strategically think of when to use those. Again, in this game, you don't have to think as strategically, because you can just die and get more.
Hell yeah.
So, you know, it's got a lot of design issues. I think, and it also even is just down to like the basic like sound mixing of the game. Like when you first play the game, the sound mixing is just so bad that I can't even hear what any of the characters are saying while they're talking. They're like all anime characters off on the side of the screen, like having their own deal, while like you're having this sensory overload of like a million things in one happening on screen, and like explosions left and right, and you can't hear a word of what the dialogue is supposed to be happening. And it's like not even a very good story anyway when you do follow it. Like you defeat like this pirate queen, and then she ends up piloting a ship and saves people, I guess. Whatever. The only interesting thing about it was like the ending, which I don't even know if it was the like canon ending because it was 1 out of 4. But you just go back home and Earth. You look at Earth and you're like, oh, we must be at the wrong planet. It looks like Mars. And then you read the sensors again, and it's like, nope, that's Earth. It's just red and barren now because
oh shit,
like you didn't do it fast enough, or maybe like you didn't kill enough of them or something. I don't know. So that was interesting. But other than that,
seems like a tricky one.
Yeah, no, I mean there are better shmup games like Jamestown and Ikaruga, that kind of thing. So if you want to play a really good one, I'd recommend some of those rather than this game. But if you're looking for just a cheap game on this bundle cycle and just wanted to try out the genre, I think that this is a good pick.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I have a heck of a conversation next.
Yeah, this one might get some people riled up, actually.
It certainly got me riled up. Let's talk about This Is the Police 2.
Oh, boy.
This is a game from Weepy Studios, who did This Is the Police 1 and Rebel Cops. From what I've seen and heard, This Is the Police 1 was great, and I feel like I could have had the potential to enjoy This Is the Police 2. But the developers... I don't think this was by any fault intentional or anything. I think it was just accidental. I think it was just sort of a narrative thing.
Well,
like,
do you think that they were trying? Because like what we're gonna talk about is misogyny, and like
yeah.
Do you think that they were that they wanted to make a message about misogyny and then it fucked up, or what? Like...
I think so. I mean I like to give people credit and hope that people have the best intentions at heart.
Yeah.
And this game deals with a lot of very misogynistic issues. The main character, at least to start, is a female sheriff of a police station. And the whole time, she is getting shat on for being a female sheriff of the police station. She's repeatedly called, terribly incompetent. No one listens to her. No one's willing to confess to her. All of the men constantly step in to save the day, so to speak. And that's that is the problem I found with this game, is that it wanted to talk about these issues of misogyny, it seems, and women's place in the workforce, especially in a boys club job like a police force. But it didn't handle it in a nuanced way at all. I think the fault lies, they made this character that was painted in a very misogynistic light, that was demonized by her peers and her coworkers, and then they made her an embodiment of that. Rather than making her a strong, developed character that was fighting against these issues, they made the issues right in their presentation of the character. So the whole time you're playing, she is incompetent. She admits several times she's too incompetent. She hires a man who's a wanted criminal to take over the sheriff's department because she can't handle to do it on her own.
Which is so fucking reflective of our own current reality, can I just say? Of, competent women just being, constantly denied the ability to lead in the face of people that are, accused of sexual assault and shit like that.
It's so fucked up. And that's what I wanted this to be about. I wanted it to be talking about these issues, and it presented itself as if it was going to be this woman's struggle in this world and this environment where everyone treats her like shit because she's a woman. But it doesn't become that. It becomes, they're all correct and we need a man to come in and solve the problem. And it was so off-putting for the entire game. And then a couple missions in, once they bring in, what's his name?
The main character?
Yeah. This is how invested I was in the story, honestly.
He's the guy from the first game.
Yes. Okay. The main character, Jack Boyd, comes in and takes over everything. And so you get these ideas of misogyny and these themes that are talked about that are presented as justifiable and accurate in the game, and then they just throw them all away, don't mention them again, and bring in Jack Boyd, and they're like, all right, the man's solving the problem now, we can ignore all the misogyny.
Thank God a man's on the job. That woman didn't know what she was doing.
Yeah, that's exactly what the game is, and it sucks. It's like the female character had such potential at the beginning, but then the developers just made her weak and inferior and incapable of leading, and it was so off-putting that like I couldn't get past the misogyny in this game. It was very...
That's such a shame.
Yeah, it is, because like the gameplay and the mechanics were great. It was really cool. It was this combination of like resource management and like
XCOM?
controlling the police force. Yeah, like XCOM, and like people wouldn't show up for work and you'd have to reprimand them, and you'd have to like solve crimes in order to get the money to hire better sheriffs, and like it was really good and well designed. And then there was like this tactical part of the game where you commanded the police force directly in a top-down like RTS style thing, and
yeah, it
was good. It was a really good game, but the themes and ideas of misogyny that were presented and justified just it was awful.
R.I.P. I was excited about that game too.
Yeah, I genuinely, on a good consciousness, cannot recommend anyone play this game unless, like, you just want to reaffirm dated ideology about the place of women in society.
If you're cool with that, I guess.
Yeah. And as I said, I don't want people to get the wrong impression. I don't think Weepy Studios, like, I don't think they're misogynistic. I don't think they intended...
Or that you're a misogynist if you enjoy the game.
Yeah, that too. You're not a misogynist if you enjoy the game. Like, obviously we are taking a much deeper look at these video games than just like it was fun to play. So we're just presenting you with the idea of like, hey, it talks about misogyny in a very fucked up way.
Yeah.
And I don't think the studio is misogynistic. I don't think it was their intent to present women in this light. I think it was just an accidental oversight. I think it was just a way to introduce the main character, Jack Boyd, from the other game back in. It was just a way of saying, like, oh, we have an incompetent head sheriff, like, that can't do the job. What's a good way to justify that? Oh, she's a woman in society or whatever. And so I think it was just a result of our current culture and not really thinking about the way the woman was being presented in the game. So I don't think it was intentional at all. I don't want to, like, paint the developers in a negative light, because
they're all
still
losers.
and supporting these developers does not mean you're supporting this sort of ideology. It just means maybe
you are supporting Satan if you support this developer. My God.
How dare you guys? How dare you guys
put money into things that you enjoy?
So yeah, I just wanted to be clear on that, but like it's problematic. I think it's a problematic game, honestly.
It's good to talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of like women should be the Ubermensch, you know?
And on that note, I just realized that was a segue for me that you gave me. Truberbrook is up next. It's pronounced with an Uber as in Ubermensch. Truberbrook. It is by a German studio, their first game called BTF. This is a game for fans of old-school point-and-click adventure games in the style of, say, more recently would be like Deponia, more old-school would be King's Quest. It's set in a sci-fi 1960s parallel world in a small town in Germany called Truberbrook. It has this really cool art style that I totally dig, where they actually made, like, little physical dioramas out of like it looks like toys and like different like sculpting materials, and then they brought that to life with like a filmographer who then transferred that into a video game space. And I think that that's just such a unique way to sort of go about designing the visuals for a game that I really want to applaud that aesthetically.
It's sort of like FMV, but captured really well.
It's like FMV, but like Wallace and Gromit. You know what I'm saying? It's like that stop motion animation, like small scale set, like sort of Kubo and the Two Strings sort of like live action kind of 3D modeling. It's really cool. Give me one sec. This is my cat. This is my cat, Frankie. Frankie's going to be here for this review now.
Frankie.
So, for Truberbrook. I say as I just like pet my cat. This story revolves around discovering the secrets and intricacies of this small little German town, while also trying to figure out who stole the main character's quantum physics notes, because he's this like quantum physics scientist, and so he spends the game
my
like
interest hardcore.
Yeah, so he's all about like learning about like quantum worlds and parallel worlds and stuff like that. And the game revolves a lot around those sort of ideas. Okay, cat's going away. Give me one sec. So, without spoiling too much about the sort of minutia of what ends up happening in the game, you get to go into like the cellar of this sort of hotel and learn about like sort of the old brewing things that they used to do. They have like this psychoactive mushroom that they used to put in like their drinks, and you get to like brew that. You get to sort of explore this area that has like an aurora borealis, and it's like it never is explained why they have it there, but it's like not supposed to be there. I think it's partially because of one of the characters who you find out, and this is spoiler territory here, is like from another dimension, and the reason why he stole your quantum physics notes is that he's trying to create a portal to go back.
This is some fringe shit we're getting into.
Yeah. So the story ends up getting into this situation where one of the characters that you play earlier on, who's this girl named Gretcha, ends up betraying the main character, and she, once she gets to the portal, makes her plans like made realized, and she's actually there to travel to another dimension and find her mother, who's apparently out there somewhere, because she left a long time ago, and she's trying to follow her, like, and sort of become rich, I guess. And at the very end of the game, you get to the portal and you send her through it, and then you get the option to either follow the guy who was traveling dimensions, or you stay with the knowledge that you have now that there are multiple dimensions and that there's science to be able to access them in the 1960s, so you would be able to like potentially write about it as a quantum physicist, which is what I ended up doing. I stayed.
Yeah.
Because I was like, holy fuck, if I really found this out, I would want to stay and write as many papers about it as I could. Like, but it also gives you the option to be like, you know, fuck this world. There's too much shit going on. It's the 1960s in Germany, and like that's sort of after this sort of that's after sort of the Nazi Germany thing happened, and things are kind of calming down, you know.
What a great way to describe the state of Germany after the Nazi Germany thing happened, you know?
You know, there's like a whole thing. It was like a whole big old thing.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the economy is kind of like dying a little bit, and like people aren't visiting it as much, but there's still like interesting thing goings on, like a festival.
It's almost as though when a economy is failing, creating a scapegoat and blaming it on other people doesn't actually fix the failing economy.
Whoa, there's an idea. Dang.
Mm.
So there were a couple of questionable things about this game. Like there's just a lot of like puzzle solutions that sometimes are a little bit like, really? Okay. But that's with like most point and click games. So if you've done this before, then you know the drill. The only thing about this game that actually is kind of nice, but also kind of bad, is that it kind of does the Walking Deadification of its items. If you've ever played The Walking Dead, it's a very, very good game, very cinematic. But it takes a lot of point and click ideas and sort of like makes them very simple. Like you get an item and then it tells you exactly where you have to use that item. And this game does that, where there's like an item wheel that like will pop up anytime you click on something, and you can see there like if you can use the item that you have in your inventory there or not. The thing I wish that I could see the names of the items. I get like little photos of the items in my inventory, and that isn't always helpful. Like little icons.
That's really interesting, because the game I'm going to talk about later does the exact opposite, to the extent of like you can stare at a puzzle for 40 minutes and try to put everything in it.
Oh, really? I'm interested in that. But oh, and there's also just one small thing which like it just bugged me personally as like a mechanic, is that I had to find a lighter at one point in the game, and it was like one of the final things that I had to find, and it was like this big thing, and I was like, why? the main character lights a cigarette and smokes all the damn time in this game. Why he has the lighter? You know? Like, he doesn't need to get another. I don't get that.
One of those little details that they just looked over.
Yeah, that was a little weird, but if you like slower paced point and click games, you'll probably really enjoy this one. I know I did.
You know, fuck Chekhov's lighter.
Chekhov's lighter. Fucking hell.
Was that my segue into Driftland?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, speaking of Chekhov's Take It lighter.
It's not even a segue. I just ended, and I expected you to pick it up.
Let's talk about Driftland, the magic revival.
Whoa.
This game. Ooh, there's wizards and Pegasi and griffins and actually I think you fly on eagle the whole time. There aren't any of those other things, just the wizards.
Way to lie, okay? Way to fucking lie.
You know, creating false expectations to disappoint people later is sort of my specialty.
It's kind of my kink.
Yeah. So Driftland is a game by Star Drifters who made previous Driftland games. And they are releasing Danger Scavenger coming soon, which is a top-down twin-stick roguelike, which looks really fascinating.
Completely different.
Completely different, because this game is a city manager, city builder. What's the technical term for these?
I think
these
it would
days?
just be city builder or city sim.
City builder, city sim?
management.
Yeah, it's a city. So yeah, I was right, I guess. And it's based on the whole sort of fantasy trope of other races are bad and humans are great and kill them all, you know.
Woo! Genocide!
Traditional fantasy racism, you know. It's a really easy way to introduce the themes and ideas of racism that are in our real world to a broader audience because no one's afraid of elves like they are of Mexicans.
Oh, God.
Yeah. it's common trope, and they lead into it. It's you've got your war between the elves and the humans and the dwarves, and the overall storyline. It's really kind of watered down. Like the storyline, it seems like a game that included a story because games are supposed to include a story, not because they wanted to tell a story and built a game around it. It starts off like the world has been destroyed because of a giant magic war, and now you, the next generation, have to rebuild it. Which is kind of an interesting thing to talk about. You know, a lot of us are up and coming, you know, Gen Zers and millennials and stuff that are finding our way into a world that's been inhabited by other people, and some might say seems bleak, and the responsibility to fix such is falling on our shoulders. So it's really interesting. You play as like a young mage who has been given magic back in this world that all the magic was wiped out of. So you're using your magic to fix and rebuild the world. So it's kind of an interesting talk about like, what do we do as young people in a broken world, and how do we fix it? And is it our responsibility to fix it, or, you know, do we leave it broken? And so it's interesting in that sense. But altogether, it's just it's a fairly mundane city sim. It's got you've got to manage your resources to the extent of like having workers create gold versus workers create food. So you have to balance like your food production versus your gold production so that you can continue to make buildings. It's a very David said earlier he wanted me to talk about it in relation to Frostpunk.
Mm-hmm.
And so like in that sense, it's a very capitalist look at a city manager. All of your resources have to be like bought or earned by your labor force, and then your labor force can like get disgruntled if they're not receiving enough food, and then they'll just stop working. And if you're I got a pop-up this morning that I hadn't seen before, and I don't know if it had any implications on the actual game. I didn't see anything as a result of it, but the pop-up said workers are becoming upset about the amount of industrialization or something like that. Because I had just built a ton of like sawmills and mines and stuff to just like develop as many resources as possible. And so I got this little pop-up that was like, they're getting tired of it. And I don't know if it actually had any impact or anything. I didn't see a direct result, but it was interesting seeing the pop-up like
Yeah.
at least commenting or making a statement about the sort of industrialization of the world as I was developing it.
That to me is, I think, one of the most important parts of city building planning management games is like the feedback that you get from like your people. Because I remember playing Tropico a lot, and one of the big things in that game is sort of like, because everything you have to win like an election in order to stay in power. So you have to keep the people happy, otherwise you don't stay in power and you lose the game. And you have to sort of consider like the needs and wants of your people in relation. It's like in that sort of same vein, if you built like way too many mines and just focus on production, then the environmentalism is going to go down the trash, and then everybody's going to get angry.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting to hear that it does have those sort of elements of like keeping the population sort of happy and under control.
Yeah, and I don't know how deep those elements actually are, or if it's just sort of surface level commentary.
Right.
I personally didn't find a direct impact on things, other than the commentary and the management of the resources of like you'd lose the game if you couldn't provide enough food for your workers.
Right.
So it's interesting. I felt it was a little lackluster, but it does have like multiplayer and stuff too, and I think that's what the game was really trying to do, is like, let's make a city sim that we can play with each other in this fantasy world.
That's very true. It's kind of hard to find a fantasy city builder that's multiplayer. That's quite a unique thing.
Yeah, and I didn't get to try out the multiplayer or anything, but it did have the same of like you build the sort of I don't know how the multiplayer played, but given the campaign missions and stuff, I imagine there's also a sort of RTS element to it, in that sense that like you aren't necessarily cooperating, but you're working against the other groups as well, and like you can take over their castles and their lands and stuff.
That's interesting. Okay.
Don't quote me on that. I didn't play the multiplayer. I didn't even look up a video on it. But if the multiplayer is presented or playable in anything like the way the campaign was playable, then it's most, I should just Google it real quick so I'm not perpetuating like false information.
Just Google like, is Driftland's multiplayer good? ?
According to the internet, it seems dead anyways, so maybe not buy it for multiplayer.
Don't buy it
But...
expecting to find... Okay, so going back. Don't buy this game expecting to find a lot of multiplayer lobbies, but if you have a buddy, you might be able to have some fun.
I really should probably try the multiplayer in some of these games as we talk about them, because I'm not big on multiplayer games like City Sims and stuff, and I'm personally more invested in like the storyline and the cultural impact.
I personally am too, and in some cases it's quite hard for us to do that, just because like the way that we do it is like we both get like the 6 games that the other person didn't, and so like the rest of the games right now we're giving away, and we don't really have room to like sort of get another game together for like just playing it to be multiplayer. So
I found it. There's both a co-op and a team multiplayer mode, so you can do 2v2 or 3v3, and you can also play together to fight an enemy.
That's actually really cool. I like having a co-op mode there as well. Sometimes being against each other is just really stressful.
Yeah, that seems like a very nice balance of you can do whatever you want with your friends. You can kill them or you can co-op them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Driftland's multiplayer. It's got multiplayer. If you're interested in that, maybe it's something worth checking out. I don't know if I'd expect to find servers. Can't speak on the validity of that, because also I didn't try multiplayer.
Yeah.
But I like Frostpunk better. Not that this is a competition, Driftland, but like,
if we're gonna stack all these together, we gotta kind of look at this as sort of like what's the word I'm looking for? Like a library.
Yeah.
Comparing and contrasting to the different things we have in our library here.
Exactly. We create a baseline of judgment based on the things that we have seen and experienced in life, and therefore...
Or have covered on this podcast, even.
Yeah. We are taking your experience to be our experience.
That's right.
I don't know. I don't know what we're talking about. Who the fuck cares?
Sure.
It's a good fantasy city sim if you want to play a fantasy city sim.
Do you want me to just hop right into the next game?
But one thing that was really cool was seeing the capitalist model in a city sim. Whoop!
Whoa! Just tossing that baton right over to me in a real gentle way. Not at all forceful. Capitalism II is the next game on the docket here, folks.
It is a game by Enlight Software Limited. They have previously made the first Capitalism game, who would have guessed, and Zoo Empire. This is a game for fans of tycoon and sim games, though I warn you, this is an old-ass game. It runs, like, natively 800 by 900, and you can't even change it. So it's stuck at that resolution, and you're just gonna have to deal with it, unless you get, like, the Capitalism Lab mod, which I'm gonna talk about in a minute. So, this is a perfect simulation, if you can call it perfect, an accurate, let's say, simulation of what capitalism is as a system. The sort of different means of buying and selling and supply and demand sort of systemized and put into a video game form.
Wait, that's capitalism?
Yeah, that's capitalism. Whoa, bro. The stock market and shit is fully completely integrated into this system. You can buy and sell stocks and do insider trading if you would like. I did that with my rival company. I bought a ton of his stock when he was a small company, and then I sold a bunch when I needed money myself, which then caused his stock to just tank, which I love that is a feature, because that is a thing that happens all the time in the real world stock market that I'm kind of now realizing.
Yo, the stock market is like the wild fucking west of making money.
Straight
It's
up.
so insane.
If you have like the capital to sort of invest, you can like basically just control the entire system. You can just be like, I want them to lose money, I want them to gain some money, I want them to like, it's just fucking the whole
Because for
game.
some reason, we as a society decided that a bunch of numbers on screen will dictate the success and profitability of all businesses across the world.
Yeah. So we're a bunch of socialists is what we're trying to say.
Some rich guy invested 40% in your stock. That must mean it's good, so this business is good now.
Yeah, man. And just like this whole game is just sort of riddled with this like starry-eyed perception of what capitalism is. And like there's no stock market crash of 2008 or 2020 because of coronavirus, you know? Like it doesn't have the actual like things that sort of happen in the real world that causes capitalism to fail. You know, the Capitalism Lab mod that I talked about before, I haven't gotten to play it, but it seems really interesting. It's made by one guy, which I'm going to look up his name right now. All right, so as I was saying, Capitalism Lab is developed by a guy by the name of Trevor Chan, and this game has been released a lot more recently, and it has mods that like basically updated to the modern day. If you can think of a company, you can probably become that company in Capitalism II Lab. So Amazon.
I can become Brad's beet farm?
Yeah, you can buy up all the beet farms you can, and then you can sell the beets to all the different supply market, like supermarkets, and then you know.
And then they can buy out my beet farm so that they can regulate the price of beets and who gets to receive them as distributors.
Correct, and then you can buy up all the apartments in the block, and then become everybody's debtor. So that's cool. The amount of money that you just kind of haphazardly toy with in this game is disgusting to me. It actually disgusts me. Like the first scenario in this game, you're just managing a single supermarket, and then like you use the money from that supermarket to open like as many more supermarkets as you can, and like try to make a ton of money from that. But like, it's just so gross. You have like $30 million, and it's like you failed. You failed, idiot. You didn't get $2 billion. You're such a loser. You're not even in the top 100 billionaire club, asshole. And it's just like, I hate it. It like, and like the things that you do for like, when you fail, like, it's just like you didn't achieve your goals. And there's like this 3D model animated guy from the 90s just crying and slumped over. And it's like, is this really what you think that like a slightly less successful performing business is that it's complete failure? Because like it's not.
Well, I mean, that's what I love about the idea of this game, is that like when it comes to being in the top 100 billionaires, yeah, the difference between like 6 billion and 3 billion is the difference of whether or not you control, you know, 40% of the fucking market
Yeah.
or 6%.
And like you see how much money you're like making per second, and you can like speed it up like a million times. So if you just want to buy like a TV station, you just like choose like, all right, I'm just gonna sit on my cash pile, hoard for a while, and then just let it accumulate, and then buy the TV station. That way I can use it to sell all my supermarket shit. It's wild, man.
Oh, it's insane. Ugh, I need to get this game.
It's something that Harvard economics experts use to illustrate to other people what capitalism is about. So if that sounds like something that you are interested in, by all means, please try this game. I would even recommend the Capitalism Lab game, because then you can start like playing as Amazon, buying out warehouses, and then just buying and selling and reselling shit. You could play as like a Facebook e-commerce kind of company where you're making money from people's data, essentially. Like, you can make and distribute, I guess, money in like sort of whatever way you please. And the difference between being an entrepreneur in this game and being a venture capitalist is just like it's like God mode versus like fucking scraping by like the skin of your teeth mode. It's just such a stark difference between like people who have money to start businesses versus people who are scraping by whatever they can to make a business happen. And
To try to climb to the top.
yeah, try to climb to the
because
top.
It's achievable for everyone.
Bullshit. The people who climb to the top are the people who already start out with the money, man. Like, it's just illustrated so perfectly in this game that like I can't even bring myself to play it too much more, just because it makes me feel gross as a person.
And I just want to reiterate a point that you made earlier. This is a game that Harvard economics use to show the actual model of capitalism.
It just sucks, man. It's not like someone finds this fun. I know that they do, because I watched a review of a guy who loved it. It was like his Bible. But
I could totally see it. Like it is fascinating. Like the way capitalism works is incredible, and like the amount of manipulation and deceit and like careful planning and orchestrating of markets and neighborhoods and cities to make to create the most amount of profit possible. It's incredible, honestly. And it like
illustrates problems. It illustrates like problems that are in the real world, but it presents them as like a positive thing. Like, oh, if you want to make more money with your supermarket, make sure that you go to the area with more affluent people, and then put it in there, and just ignore all the people in less affluent areas. It's like, what?
And that's the point, is that like it shows how inhuman and toxic and terrible capitalism is. Like you have to have a certain mentality in order to be able to succeed in capitalism. And part of that is that like a blatant disregard for people. People are not people. People are objects of profit and of consumption.
Yeah, man. And this game just boils it down to a graph of just like, here is your exploited resources, and here is like your profit margin, and make sure it's as high as possible. Good luck.
It is. I love it.
Yeah.
I love just having that sort of representation exists, and it's like anyone can play this. The game's like $2 on Steam. Anyone can play this. Anyone can, use it as a means to study the capitalist world around us, because we all live in a world that operates by the rules of this game, which is like
a game. It's a system.
It's a game.
It's a fucking system that you can game. And that's what this game teaches me, is that like, if you don't realize that capitalism is a game that people are gaming, that you could be gaming if you just started with better resources, then like, I don't know. Socialism, man. That's what I'm saying.
It's so much better.
Yeah.
We should all be judged by our social merit and not by the money in our pocket.
You know who is thoroughly judged based on everything he does? More in a point sort of system than anything else, though.
Agent 47?
Yeah.
Oh, let's talk about Hitman.
Yeah.
2. Hitman 2, a game made by IO Interactive. They did the Oops All Hitman series, in which they produced or developed Hitman 1 and Hitman Rogue Agent and Hitman Frolic Through the Field. Like, they've done like 12 Hitman games. And this game is a game where you play a very sneaky boy, and you sneak around and you kill people. And segues, you kill a lot of capitalists.
Yeah, like a really good amount, actually.
Yeah, like predominantly this game is about murdering capitalists, which is like my cup of tea. I mean, I love a good game where a billionaire gets their what's the word I'm looking for?
Their comeuppance?
No, comeuppance is a good one though. It's a religious word.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Bringing religion into this Hitman discussion. The sacred Hitman
I
discussion.
can't remember the world. Someone tell us what it is in a comment or something. I'm sure you know more than I do.
I'm sure that you understand Johnny's brain better than Johnny understands his own brain.
I'm sure most people do. I don't know what's going on in there. Honestly, I feel like I don't have cognitive thought about 30% of the time.
Okay, but this the idea that like that like no one is kind of like above the law, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's a huge theme in this game. Is that like the game you're playing an agent, an assassin, who's a hitman, one may say, whose job is to kill members of a resurgent force that are threatening the group of capitalists in power. It's really interesting, because you play for the bad guys the predominant majority of the game. You're killing the capitalists that are revolting against the capitalists. It's super interesting, and so but the company you're working for, they have done all kinds of fucked up shit to get where they are and control the amount and have the amount of power that they do. You find out that the handler you're working for, her parents got blown up in a car explosion when she was young because her dad was trying to hold the companies accountable for killing a bunch of people, basically. And so like that is like the predominant motivation of the handler to get back at these groups, is that like no one's above the law. Even these corporations, even these people with all the power and all the money in the world who determine and decide everything in our lives, they're not above the law. They should still be held to the same standards. And it's super interesting. And there was this really interesting idea of like the consumer disconnect from the corporate agenda, and that idea of like there's a company who provided technology for the world, right? And super cool, that's great, everyone loved their technology, but secretly they were making deals with the military to blow up civilians in other countries and stuff. And like that idea of like, we as consumers don't understand what these corporations are actually doing, who they're actually working for, the other stuff that's going into play. Like we don't hear about, people don't talk about these things that corporations are doing beyond just, oh, they provided us with a product and that's all they do.
There was a mission where you go to this island full of a bunch of rich people in a castle, and they're all wearing masks. And it's like this secret society full of all of the billionaires in the world controlling everything. And it's your job to like go in and assassinate one of those rich people. And
see, I didn't do that. I didn't do that mission. But like those themes were everywhere. There's a mission where 3 of the largest drug cartel members were on an island together. And it was really interesting though, because like this is the beautiful imagery of like one of the notes I wrote down for this is why do the criminals always have to be the ones that are saving us from the criminals? Like it's a really interesting topic I wanted to talk about, because like Al Capone and the drug cartels and the mob and stuff, these are
Yakuza, man.
Yakuza, yeah, these are criminal organizations that do real fucked up things, but the help and the things they're doing for their communities 90% of the time are more than the corporations and the billionaires and other people have ever done for these communities. That is why Al Capone didn't get snitched on, is because he was a legend to these people. He brought communities out of poverty. He gave people jobs. He protected them when no one else would. Like that is what these people do. That is how they create movements, is by helping the people who have suffered the most. And those people, it creates undying loyalty. And so, like, why are these people the ones who always have to help us, rather than, like, the billionaires and the corporations that are actually controlling everything?
I actually, just to add on to that, have you ever, and just bring a little bit of topical sort of stuff going on, have you heard about Brazil, and, like, the sort of things that are going on right there right now in sort of relation to this?
Bits and pieces. Fill us in.
Yeah, so basically, there have been really strict curfews that have been imposed by the gangs in Brazil, like the drug traffickers, because of COVID-19. That, like, Jair Bolsonaro, the leader of Brazil, he's kind of denying the whole epidemic and like sort of being very lax about everything, and because of that, militant, like, criminal organizations are stepping up to fulfill the place that law enforcement is supposed to fulfill.
And that's that is mind-boggling. Like, that is how the world works, is like, and that's like, we can get into some buck wild shit of, like, corporate agendas and painting, people who are doing really good things in a very negative light so that public perception of them is super negative, shit like that. But, like, that's a little, like, out there from the topic right now. But yeah, it's and that to circle this back to Hitman, that mission was about this cartel coming to this island, to this group of people. They're using the island to traffic drugs and grow cocaine and stuff. But the way they get the island on their sides is they tell them, like, we are going to protect you from your government. They're tyrannical. They're fucked up. They're killing your people. And we are here to save you from that. And we as a group can rise up against that and we'll protect you from them.
And then as a player, what you do is you walk up to the leader of that and then you push them off a cliff.
Yeah. And then you fucking kill them because they're trying to help the people.
Yeah. It's really funny how, like, you are just, like, such an agent of chaos in this game that is so nonchalant, and, like, you don't care necessarily about what's happening. Like, you're killing a lot of influential people, but you're sort of, like, in a non-influential, like, entity yourself. Like, you're just sort of doing the things you're asked.
There was this beautiful line in there that was it's a terrible thing to have a conscience.
Huh.
And that rings so true. And back to capitalism, it's that idea of, like, if you care about your actions, if you care about the people around you and the impact it has, like, it holds you back in the world. It really does. Mm-hmm. It's a terrible thing in our world to have a conscience. It's a great humanitarian thing, but
it only lets you down in business.
Yep, but we don't live in a humanitarian world. We live in a world of business and numbers and capital.
Yeah, gotta raise those numbers, man.
Yeah, I feel like I tangented way hard on this game.
Hey, that's cool. I might as well just bring it back to, like, the actual game a little bit, because I've played a lot of this game myself before this came out for the Humble Monthly, and I also have a lot more, like, DLC, sort of, which that's a problem with this game.
Yeah, which I found that to be a huge problem, is, like, the storyline's great, and right as the elite shadow organization that rules the world is about to get its justice and you're going to murder them,
pay up. Yeah.
If you want the final 2 missions to kill the capitalists, then pay up.
The reason for that, like, I get. The problem that I had with Hitman 2 is that I think it's one of the best games ever made in one of the worst possible business models. Like, the way that they've released the first Hitman, and then also consequently the second Hitman, is sort of like episodically. Like, they'll release, like, the first episode, and then you can buy just that episode, or you can buy, like, the whole thing, and then get it when it comes out. But they did that with this game, and then they were also just kind of like, well, we need more money, and we spent a lot of money on, like, the other stages, and we incorporated all of, like, the Hitman 1 stages into this game as well. So if you own the first game, then you get them all in this game. So we need more money for all the new stages. And my friend was just all about it. He's like, oh my god, yes, please take my money, I want more. But it took me a while to sort of work up the gusto to want to buy it. Like, I love every moment that I put into that game, and sort of the replaying it especially is one of the most entertaining and rewarding aspects of it. Sort of learning the level layouts of each particular place, and at first it sort of feels impenetrable. Like, every place is impossible to sort of get into.
I failed so much at the start of all these missions.
But once you get used to the layout, it actually feels like this perfect little jungle that you can navigate perfectly and quickly. Like, you can run across one side of the map to the other within seconds if you know how to.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like I heard the Hitman 2 level design as described similar to an IKEA, where it sort of has like different sections.
I could see that.
Right, where like you sort of wander through, and it sort of it funnels you through like a mouse maze. But there are little holes in the maze that if you know the holes, like employees do, then you can funnel your way around the whole place really easily. But it's just about learning those little holes.
Something else I want to mention about this that you kind of talked about in the play style of the game. I found the Ludo narrative of this game to be one of the most clever and subtle and beautiful Ludo narratives I've ever played. Because, and I think this might tie a little bit to why you enjoy the game so much, is that there's this idea, this game, it takes you through a planning stage. You have to learn these maps. You have to learn every movement of the people you're tracking. You have to learn every detail. You have to be careful. You have to be cunning. You have to be smart and think about these things. Mm-hmm. And the whole idea, it's bundled in this revolution. Like you are revolting against these shadow people in power. And that blending that idea of like revolutions don't happen overnight. Like, they take time, they take patience, they take understanding and compassion and thought and
behind the scenes work. Yeah.
Behind the scenes work, right? If you just walk in with a gun and try to kill everyone, everyone around you is going to get hurt and you're going to end up dead. Mm-hmm. And so like that beautiful blending of this gameplay that takes just as much patience, just as much planning, just as much insight as like a real revolution takes. It just felt like every level felt like I was actually like involved and pushing the movement. There it is, pushing the movement forward.
Gotcha, man. Yeah, I really dig those games, man. They're really fun, super replayable too. And I just wanted to mention also because it's all cooperative. Because I've played a little bit of this with my friend. There's like a optional sniping mode, and you have to pay a lot to play like all the different sniping missions, but they're kind of fun. They're just like you sit there on like a sniping roost with like a buddy, and you just shoot a whole bunch of people, and like you have to solve puzzles to like get all of them killed without alerting everyone. There's like a wedding and like a dockyard, and there's also an optional multiplayer mode that like they haven't added too much to, but I really want them to do more with, where you basically compete with a ghost of another player to try to kill targets faster than the other person. And it is so cool and fun and unlike any other kind of multiplayer experience that I've ever played before. It's very hard, but it's also just intoxicatingly fun. So, enjoyed it.
One thing I found disappointing in this game is that there's no sort of like shop management or anything.
Yeah, what the hell is up with that, huh? This next game has like so much shop management, it's crazy, and that's why it's my favorite game of all time. Shoppe Keep 2, baby. It's from Strange Fire Studios, and they made Shoppe Keep, shocker there, and Craft Keep. This is for fans of shopping/managerial games. If you've ever heard of a game called Recettear, it is similar to that.
Your repertoire of games is so exotic and interesting that you have a game to recommend and talk about for everything, and I love that.
Video games are like my favorite thing, and I want to play a little bit of everything personally. So I can't stand playing one game for too long, personally. But anyway,
I play my games like I play my relationships.
I might as well talk a moment about Recettear because of how similar it is. So Recettear is a game, it's very anime ugu, so if you can get past that, it's this really fun item shop management game where you sort of play as like the person in charge of an item shop in a traditional JRPG. So you occasionally go out and like recruit heroes to sort of fight in the dungeon for you to get more items to sell in your shop. And you can buy stuff from like the item supply as well to resell at a higher value. And that sort of is super addicting in its own way. There's something about like just the buying and reselling mechanic that is like weirdly addictive, and just seeing numbers go up and up and up. It's like a clicker. I don't know. I love it. And this game is very similar to that, but I'd say less polished game-wise, and certainly
not as much of a looker, if you call those anime aesthetics a looker. This game has like a very sort of crude 3D polygonal Unity type looking assets. The game, I mean, it looks unfinished. Honestly, it's not very pretty, and the UI is very bad. Like, it took me a while to figure out how to buy things from furniture shop dealers because it's not like an inventory system like you do with everything else. You just have to stand there and hold a button. It's weird, man.
Yeah.
This game has a lot of jank, but what I'm trying to get to is that I think that there's something cool here. I really enjoyed my time with it, actually. Weirdly, I spent like 10 hours playing it, and I didn't expect to spend that much time playing this game at all, remotely.
That's how I felt about my next game.
Yeah, so I started out as the werewolf, where as in wares. So I have like a fox sort of face outfit, and like I got like a DeviantArt sort of hair color, and like and like I'm naked also. My character was totally naked.
Oh my god, that's so good.
So we ran the wolf family in. That honestly, that pun is probably half of what kept me playing. I just saw that character and it made me happy. So it revolves around your sort of little shop, and the main mechanic of the game that allows you to progress is tax. Which, so funny that Capitalism II barely mentions tax, and then this game is the central mechanic.
Well, because that's what you get into buck wild shit with capitalism, is that, like, the Capitalism 2 was an unregulated representation of capitalism. You could just do whatever the fuck you wanted because there was no government to say, hey, that's fucked up, care about people. And, like, but yeah, taxes are a way of, adding humanity to a capitalist system.
It really is. Like, the only thing that's a little bit weird is that you set the rates yourself, but I mean, that's just, like, a gameplay thing, whatever. It starts out like really small with like copy pasted buildings everywhere, and like it honestly, like, if that's all that you saw of the game, I wouldn't blame you for just turning it off. But the town upgrades 2 to 3 times, and it grows bigger and bigger with like more shops and upgrades. You get like a blacksmith in town that helps you craft different things. You get a cook that helps you assemble different cooking ingredients into like stews and stuff that you can sell at a higher price. There's an alchemist.
You're not only managing your shop, but you're also kind of managing the town.
A little bit, yeah. It's kind of weird how much you're like a sort of in access sort of mayor almost of the town, because you kind of decide and help fund basically everything in the town, and once you get the town up to like a certain high state. Well, I was actually going to mention earlier the alchemist. Because there you get to like craft potions and then like do a bunch of wizard stuff, and then eventually he unlocks like a farm for you where you get to like then go and like raise like different seeds and stuff, and like you can use the things from that and like other crafting recipes, and it's got like so much more depth than I ever expected going into it. The game really opens up once it allows you to leave the city, because you're kind of trapped in the city for a very long time. Until you raise enough tax money to sort of open up the borders. And then you get to sort of explore around. Everything killed me until I found a crab bow in an elven town in a mailbox. So I took that and I used it, and I killed me some crabs who were previously wrecking the crap out of me, and started reselling crab meat. Because everything you do in this game eventually boils back down into selling things in your little town.
It all goes back to capitalism.
It does, man. It does. Eventually, you start getting like I got to like the point where I had like really strong, like it was like a stone bow or something, and it one shot like most things, and so combat was like no longer an issue. And really, it's like not even an issue anyway, because they all spawn in like very specific prerequisite locations, and like don't ever wander away from those locations, so you can just walk over and just kill them, and then they respawn and kill them again and respawn. It's like kind of lame in that sense, and the world is a little small. It's got like kind of 3 sections with like a grassland area that you start out in, and a dwarven area outside of it.
with like a bunch of orcs and stuff actually, and like barbarians. And then there's another area that's like for the elves, and it's like all blue, and they have serpents, which are I think the hardest enemy in the game, but that's not saying much. And like skeletons and stuff. Eventually, you actually unlock the ability to start trading with factions, which is really interesting, and I wish that they had incorporated it earlier into the game, because I felt like it was one of the cooler parts, where like if you buy more material from one faction than you do from another, then they'll get like increased reputation with you, while the others will get decreased reputation with you. And so if you do that too much, then like what happened in my town is all the dwarves got mad at me for selling too much to the teleportation elves, and so or I don't even know if they were elves.
You undercut the dwarven like cart industry and paid too much to the teleportation industry.
Literally, I was like, if I can just teleport everywhere, then like why? Like, but also there was a journal that like I wanted to get everything in, which I almost did. I almost checked out every single thing in the journal. And that was one of the things, was you had to make a teleporter thing. So I just, like, literally to get the achievement, I just made a horrible relationship with the other two factions and sold exclusively to the one. But that caused the dwarves to show up in my town, offering people free boots to kick my tables with. So it's really cool the way that like the game sort of reacts to you in a sort of systemic way. And then another thing that I found out that was way cool later on, when I was just buying and selling all of this like wizard shit, because I had like all of these like staves and like wizard robes that I kept trying to sell to get increased reputation with these folks, I realized that I had oversold, and that everyone in town had one now, and no one would buy it at the regular price. So I had to start undercutting my own prices, and I had to start selling it like a 40 to 60% loss in order to get anybody to even buy it and get them off my shelf so I can get the increased like rating with these people.
Holy shit, that's so cool.
And there's another mechanic that I don't know for sure if it actually became like influential, but like you can kill people who steal things from your shop. You can kill anyone really if you want to. It's just that people will get a little bit more mad and not want to buy your stuff as much, which that's sort of a weird element of the game that I'm not always super comfortable with. But I killed so many people that stole things from me so fucking often that like I'm pretty sure I reduced the entire population of the town, and like less people showed up to buy things from me. Like even once I got my reputation back up, so it was like
because
more
they were
beneficial.
afraid that you just say they stole something and you'd kill them.
It was more beneficial to hit people, just smack them with my weak little hammer rather than like my one-shot thing, because that would make them just drop the item and walk away.
You punish them, you don't kill them.
Exactly, and like that was sort of an interesting little thought bubble right there that came to me. And so like that's why like the more time that I put into this game, the more that I actually found myself really, really enjoying it and liking it, because it just builds and it sort of expands in like this beautiful little flower that you didn't expect to expand. Yeah, so it's much more wholesome because of that tax element, and or like actually building sort of a community rather than like just this massive media mogul empire just for the sake of your own wealth. It's a neat little game. I don't know that I'd recommend it over Recettear, especially just for like a single player experience. Because if you just want to experience the sort of like item shop sim, I feel like that's just a better game. It's just better built. But the fact that this is like all done in like real time and it's like multiplayer also, I hear it doesn't work very well, but you can do like direct connect. I feel like that would actually be like a really fun experience, and I would love to try that at some point. But other than that,
so you wouldn't recommend it over Recettear, but would you recommend it as a pick for the bundle?
For a pick for the bundle, sure. I think that if you're into item shop management games and you want to, if you have time and you're okay with trying something a little bit new and dealing with some jank, then I think you're going to have some fun. It's just, it's hidden in the mire, man. You have to dig for the gem.
Yeah, like a lot of digging, you know? Like a lot of, speaking of digging for the gem.
Oh, is there digging in this game?
No, there's not, but, I have a segue.
Okay,
I have a segue.
Okay, build it.
Digging for the gem of great narrative buried in a classic fantasy race trope.
That is a stretch, but I'll take it. Okay.
The Bard's Tale 4 Director's Cut. This is a game by In Exile. They did Wastelands and Torment and The Bard's Tale 1 through 3. I think. Fact check that, David.
Sure, I'll look that up.
No, let's be real. I doubt they would have made the Bard's Tale 1 and then just jumped to the Bard's Tale 4. They're not, like,
The thing
avant-garde.
that actually shocks me about in Exile is that they're a developer that I know about and I really like. I contributed to their Kickstarter for Wasteland 2.
Oh, hell yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're... okay, so this game, right? It's a turn-based RPG. A fantasy RPG. With like that sort of early 2000s RPG style of like, I don't know if this is bad or just charming. And it hits immediately on the classic fantasy trope. And we talked a little bit about this in Driftlands or whatever. And in that idea of like, other races are bad and humans are the best. Immediately the game starts out, you're standing in front of an execution thing, and you watch a whole bunch of other races like orcs and dwarves and stuff just get killed. And they immediately start preaching this idea of like, the dwarves and these old races are terrible, we need to kill them all, they're the cause of all the harm in the world. And so immediately I was like, great, it's another fantasy story about race. Because we don't have enough of those. Thanks, Tolkien. But it immediately opens up, and I found this game incredible because it talks about pertinent issues that are going on right now, like right fucking now. Because it doesn't just talk about race. It does it in a real nuanced way, in the sense of shifting blame and using other races and people as scapegoats for crises. And it's something we're seeing right now in the world we live in. There was this fucking quote that just like stuck with me hard while I was playing this game. And it was, until the mayhem, all they did was preach. Now they want to wipe us out.
Mm.
And that one sentence alone says so much. It's that fucking idea of like, we're going to preach against this group of people until there's an event that we can blame on them to use it as an excuse to kill them. And that like, I will say that sentence again, just so you can think about,
Yeah,
I don't want to come out and blatantly say anything, but like, just think about the implications that our real world is having.
With COVID and all that.
Yeah, like, until the mayhem, all they did was preach. Now they want to wipe us out. Like, that's such a fucking powerful sentence that just resonates with the world and the state of affairs right now. And this idea that, like, existence is a crime. Like, it is criminal to be you, and it is your fault, this other group of people's fault, that we're in the situation we're in now. Not our own fault. We didn't fuck up in any manner, you know? It's entirely their fault.
Right.
They get all the blame, and now we're coming for you because you hurt us.
We call it the Chinese coronavirus because we don't want to have to think about the fact that America is really fucking up the response to coronavirus right now.
Yeah, and it just like, it's so beautiful. And I like the game was not written as a response to this situation. The game was written as a response to the way we respond to situations. Like, this is a reoccurring thing that continuously happens. I mean, just how did you put it? The whole Nazi thing, the Nazi Germany thing. That whole situation did the same exact thing. In an economic crisis, they picked a group of people, they blamed them for it, they used it as a means to demonize, hurt, and harm this other group of people. And like, it's so powerful and resonates so well with what's happening today that, like, if you don't understand the way that media and society and the world around us uses these other people and these situations and scapegoats, play this game, because you can actively see it in a distant manner that like is refreshing, and like it doesn't make you feel at fault. It doesn't make you feel like you're doing something wrong or like you're complicit or anything. It's just using a different model to show something that actually occurs. And you can see it in these characters that are scared and terrified, that were just minding their own business when their inn gets kicked down and burnt because they happened to be a different group of people, even though they had nothing to do with the situation that happened and nothing to do with the changes in the world.
Crisis just drives people to do that kind of thing, huh?
Yeah, exactly. It's incredible, and like, yeah, like, just go play this fucking game, because like, and think about the world as you're playing this game, and paint those metaphors, and paint. I don't want to be the one to tell you exactly what you should take away from this game, and I don't want it to like influence what you receive while you're playing it. But keep an open mind and think about the mirrors and the images and the representation of our real world in this, and like, it is abundantly clear, and like, don't let us become them.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. now
it's scary.
One thing that I was a little bit curious about with regards to this is that it does have a mixed review on Steam, and do you want?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Let's talk a little bit about the gameplay.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I have not mentioned that at all.
That's true. This has all been kind of very, very in the air kind of talk.
Yeah, the gameplay. It's a turn-based RPG, so you do RPG things. You gear up your creatures, your people, your party. You find equipment. And the combat is turn-based. It's really cool. It was enlightening on my opinions on turn-based games, and the ones that I enjoy and the ones that I don't. Baxter and I talked a little bit about this before the podcast, in that I made the realization that I like turn-based games that allow you to think about movement and placement of your people, because that adds some sort of like thought and some sort of like practice that it's more of a chess game and less of a point or a button mashing game, you know?
Right.
It actually makes your decisions have a little more impact than just like, did I Google the right ability to use?
Which is a lot of the times what JRPGs can, and just RPGs in general, can often boil down to, of just like, well, use the right spell at the right time and you're good.
Which is why I hated Octopath Traveler, but that's another discussion.
Yeah, man. Very traditional sort of JRPG.
Yeah, I get so much crap because I say I hated that game, but it was bad.
I mean,
but yeah,
some people can just like distance themselves from the mechanics of those sort of games and just enjoy the story, and I can't do that.
It's fair. I imagine there's something sort of like meditative about being able to just like sit there and follow the story and just sort of like passively play the game.
Right. And so for some people, it doesn't even matter like what the gameplay is if the story's good.
Exactly, and that's the sense. But I mean, Octopath Traveler story wasn't great, but that's a different. It's 8 tutorials disguised as a grand RPG, but that's a different thing.
Damn, some fucking Octopath Traveler shit. Let's hope we don't have to review it. I'll take that one.
Oh, please. But yeah, so it's like you have control of the movement, which added a lot of really cool elements of like, oh, I can place a person here to block an attack so that my weaker guys can survive, or I can make this guy go invisible and block the front lane because no one can attack back. There was a lot of really cool elements to the movement and troop placement. Like it got as far as like I would teleport enemies in front of the line of attack of other enemies so that they would take the damage from it. Super cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
So there was a lot of depth in that, and so turn-based RPG. But as you said, a lot of mixed reviews. It took me probably 4 hours to even get this game to run.
Damn.
I'm gonna start with that. Like there are a lot of technical difficulties in this game. I had to install it 3 times to finally get it to launch. There are like I was juggling between controls and mouse and keyboard controls. Controller controls and mouse and keyboard, gamepad, that's what they're called. And like there were a couple areas where like things glitched and I had to change settings to get it back to normal and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of weirdness and bugs in the game. Enemies, you can't tell how difficult an enemy is until you're within a certain range of them, but probably about 80% of the time when you got within that range, they would just automatically trigger the fight. So you die a lot just wondering, like, can I fight these guys? Oh, nope, I can't. I'm dead. So there's a lot of that, and it is a turn-based RPG with a ton of puzzles. It is predominantly a puzzle game.
That's cool.
Yeah, there's cog puzzles. You have to, like, almost every door you go through, you have to solve a puzzle to get through. The whole like second area is an archmage's like castle, and every room is a puzzle that you have to solve. There are yeah, well, not even like traps. Most of the puzzles aren't harmful. It, like, you can solve them wrong multiple times. It's just like they're just puzzles. You just have to solve a puzzle. There's all kinds of riddles, like little statues that you have to put the right item in order to get through. But the statue, the only hint you have is a riddle in the statue. And so you have to like solve those. Like one of them was the components of health makes someone lively in life, or something like that. And so you have to put the components of a health potion into it in order to solve it. So there's a lot of little puzzles throughout the entire game. Even there are weapons you can find that have puzzles on the hilts to unlock their power.
Huh, that's cool.
What? Yeah, it's super cool. Like it is just riddled with puzzles. And if you like puzzles, it's super fun because like every corner it's like, oh cool, a new puzzle to solve.
It's the fucking Professor Layton of RPGs.
Yeah. And a lot of people did not like that. A lot of people were expecting to play probably something more akin to a traditional turn-based RPG, and they get in there and every room's a puzzle. And
like, I can't figure out how to progress.
Yeah. So that's part of the reason for the mixed reviews is a lot of people weren't expecting it to be so puzzle oriented.
That's interesting. I would ask if the previous games were like that, but I'm sure you have no idea.
You know, I can't speak to it, but
but
I would probably assume yes.
Huh.
You know, I doubt they'd make a huge departure from the sort of mechanics and gameplay that made the first 4 games, you know? Like, why would they pick this one to go, oh, let's do a bunch of puzzles in?
Right. It would be kind of odd, although I guess it would explain.
it would explain we didn't think there'd be puzzles if all of a sudden they were like, hey, let's make this one a puzzle game.
God, could you imagine if you're just playing Call of Duty and then suddenly it's got like a Professor Layton puzzle? God.
Oh, I want that so bad. Just the next Call of Duty is just like fucking straight puzzles.
The entire single player is just puzzles. You have to arrange the different cars in order to arrange for like the terrorist getaway. Like you have to like.
I mean, wouldn't you say all Call of Duties are the puzzle of which bullet you put in which part of the enemy?
I mean, they basically are if you want to look at it from that kind of systemic point of view. Like it's just like I solved the puzzle by clicking on the guy in the head. It's really good.
Yeah, so that was the Bard's Tale. Phenomenal game. Oh, I really wanted to talk about this because you know we talk about the ludonarrative of games.
Yeah,
and,
hit it.
I had David help me with this because I was struggling a bit to find the words to describe the ludonarrative of this game.
Yeah, please.
And why I feel like a turn-based RPG fit this rather than like an action game or something.
Because you don't always love turn-based, really. Like as we've expressed with Octopath.
Yeah, exactly. I am a very hard person to sell a turn-based game on. It's got to be good. And I think it's because like the reason they chose turn-based RPG is probably because like there's a sort of immediate like visualization of the cause and effect of your actions, like and your actions and choices impact the game in a different way than like an action game does. Because like, did I make the right choice to have my character use this move rather than that move? Did I make the right choice in giving them a certain gear? Things like that. Like your choices and actions feel like they have more impact than a game based in skill rather than like thought. And I think when you're presenting a game about the themes and ideas of the way we think about other people and other races and the way we respond to people in crises and stuff, I think a turn-based game gives that beautiful visualization of the cause and effect. It's like it's a conversation, as David beautifully said earlier, with your character.
It's part of the reason why I like Undertale so much, and why I think it's so revolutionary, is because it sees that JRPG-like mechanics and that sort of turn-based sort of system has very much a lot to do with just traditional conversations. You know, you give one thing, the other person gives one thing, and then you give something back, and then they give something back, and it's just a conversation, a back and forth.
Yeah, and so like making this a turn-based game is a great way of like telling you as the player, hey, think about the way your actions are impacting people. Think about the way the things you say and do, what it causes and how it affects the people around you. Think about how you're responding in a crisis, and is that appropriate? Are you going to get the correct results out of it? Or perhaps maybe your immediate thought of one path, your immediate thought of one action, your immediate way of solving this puzzle isn't correct. Maybe you need to go back and think about it.
That's cool, man. I really like games that do that. Kind of force you to think about things in a different perspective.
Yeah, I phenomenal game. Get it. It may take you 3 hours to get it to load. It may bug on you a lot. You may get some crashes, but like, especially right now. If we were in any other place in the world right now, I probably would not have paid this game any attention. But especially right now with the state of things, like, play this game.
So this is a good quarantine game, is what you're saying.
100%.
Hell yeah. I love it. Well,
but you know, unfortunately, I do have some bad things to say.
Oh, really? Please.
Yeah, there were no dinosaurs. Like, I just wanted dinosaurs. Why aren't there dinosaurs in a fantasy game?
You know, I have the perfect game for you if what you want is dinosaurs. Well...
Oh, tell me more.
I have to ask, do you like dinosaurs, or do you like murdering dinosaurs?
Oh, the only good dinosaur is a dead dinosaur.
Well, my friend, I have good news for you. Turok 2, Seeds of Evil is included in this month's bundle. And this is another game from Iguana Entertainment and Night Dive Studios. Indeed, the same developers of the first Turok on the original N64 and PC. So this is, I would say a port, but I guess it did actually come out on PC also, like, simultaneously. So it's a modern day port of it from the original game. So it is very similar to the first game in that it is a very old school 90s first-person shooter with low poly, blurry textures. I will say that the enemies were actually quite larger, and I went back just to double-check. They're all, like, really bulky. They look like World of Warcraft characters, if you know what I'm talking about, and how they just sort of have, like, these comical proportions about their limbs. And I don't know. It's something about that, like, it kind of places it so specifically in, like, a period of time in the late 90s to me. Okay, so I did enjoy this game, but I don't think that I enjoyed it actually as much as the first, and I might as well just kind of start with that, because there's just so many options that the first game has to modern-day players that the second game does not have, such as mod support. And integrated Steam Workshop support is so freaking cool, and it elongates the longevity of a game so much to me. I went back and played the original Turok just for comparison, and I played it with a Turok Plus mod this time that changed some of the weapons that you get in the beginning of the game, and just like the balance of it, and like some of the different like values associated. And I actually had like a really good time playing that with the HD textures too. The one thing that I will say is, for some reason, it made my video go like crazy. When I was recording it, it somehow took up like 130 gigabytes, just like the one file for footage of like an hour of playing it with the HD mod.
That's insane.
I have never experienced that with any other game, but I guess just because of like how motion intensive it is, like, man, I don't know what happened there, but just the file size was so large that I had to stop recording at a certain point, which is a shame, because I didn't record possibly the coolest boss in all of video games, a fucking Hummer. I wish I got to that point.
The real dinosaur.
I wish I got to that point in the first Turok, but like, you get to this point where you fight this fucking Hummer, you blow up the first Hummer, then another Hummer comes out, you blow up that Hummer, and then there's this Englishman with like a funny hat, and you kill him. Like, that's the first boss of the game.
That is so good.
It's the first game is just so weird in so many different like sort of cheesy ways like that, and it does jive with me in that sense. There's also a lot more first-person platforming segments, which I know not everyone's a fan of, but I kind of have a weird soft spot in my heart for them, and the first game has a lot of it, so just know that. Uh, and also, interestingly, something that I noticed that actually made me fall in love with the first game more is that there's no aiming reticle. And I was struggling to figure out why I was able to play one game with a controller and the other game felt so odd to me and like I had to play on mouse and keyboard. And it was the reticle that did it. I swear, it's just like the fact that you have this tiny little dot on screen that it makes you want to be more precise with the movement. I have like a Steam controller, so it is a little more precise than other controllers. But it just was so much more fun to me to play Turok 1 with a controller than it was to play it any other way. Because I just kind of like, the aiming was more of a challenge. It was like, oh, around the center of the screen, pop, 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 they're dead. I don't know. It's just something satisfying to that, about having to sort of guesstimate around where you're aiming rather than being told exactly where you're aiming. It turns it to be like a point-and-click puzzle to be like what feels like more like a first-person shooter. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, in that sense, I definitely enjoyed the first game more, but the second game, it's got a lot going for it still. It's got more of a sort of better presentation about it, I'd say. The areas look a little bit more diverse and unique, although that isn't really saying much. It all blends together still a lot for me. And backtracking is definitely a challenge because it's hard to tell when I've been in a place and when I haven't without just like going crazy. I mean, the map tells you like where you've been, but it doesn't tell you like where the items that you're looking for are. So you just have to wander around the map for a really long time. And there's no way to look at an expanded version of the map, just like a radar-esque version of what the map is around you. So it's hard to play any longer than like the first couple of zones because there's so much backtracking and looking around in that sense.
Yeah.
But for a couple of hours, for a nice fun evening playing an older game that you might not have played before, I felt like it was a really enjoyable experience. Just not one that I would recommend to anyone by any means. It's more for fans of those old 90s old school shooters and specifically fans of Turok.
Hell yeah.
You know, what's funny is that I keep doing this thing where like I'll just get to my last point and then I'll stop, and then I won't even like provide you with a segue. So how about this?
You know, we're working on our segue game. We gotta keep at it.
Zachtronics.
Yeah, Zachtronics. So
yeah, he's a guy.
Our final game this week. We've made it to the end. Congratulations, everyone.
We started it. We're ending it.
Yeah, it's been a journey. This bundle, hasn't it? Jeez.
Yeah.
Our final game, one might say, is the Magnum Opus.
It is.
Oh no, Opus Magnum.
It's his best game ever made because that's what it says on the tin, right?
I mean, yeah, one would expect a game with the name Opus Magnum would be a declaration of the developer's Magnum Opus, right?
And it has to have Solitaire, right?
It has to have Solitaire. Oh my god, there it is!
Did you figure it out? Does it have Solitaire? Molex-SYNTEZ had Solitaire, we didn't mention it.
No, his Opus Magnum. Oh yeah, it did have, Molex-SYNTEZ has Solitaire, important note. But Opus Magnum.
Editor's note.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's his Magnum Opus. He made his own version of Solitaire.
Oh my god!
It's not about the game, it's about the mini game within the game. There is this sort of version. He forgoed Solitaire instead for a sort of like, it's a match to mahjong style kind of game.
Yeah.
Which is close to Solitaire.
But no, I like your earlier point. The game itself is the Solitaire. It's his Magnum Opus Solitaire. He made his own version of Solitaire, and this is it.
And well, this is a Zachtronics game. For those very good fans and lovers of Zachtronics. Never gonna not recommend one of these games because so good. In this one, the gameplay is almost the exact same as Molex-SYNTEZ. You're doing the same thing, just with different icons. In fact, you're transmuting instead of mushing together. I don't know the technical term. I'm not a chemist. I'm an arts major.
Chemical reactions that you synthesize.
Synthesize. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. You're transmuting instead of synthesizing. And it's the storyline of this game is totally not like Molex-SYNTEZ. There's a deep storyline. There's cutscenes, etc. Not that Molex-SYNTEZ storyline isn't deep, but it is a presented storyline. And it's all about aristocracy and ruling classes and the overthrowing. This is what I think our theme was this week. Maybe I don't know if it was as present in your game, possibly because you dealt with the systems themselves. My games all seem to deal with the overthrowing of dated systems and powers, or at least the predominant majority of my games.
Mine kind of deal with more like capitulating to those powers. I don't know.
Yeah, so there's this sort of dichotomy in these games of overthrowing the powers and the powers that be. Interesting. But yeah, it's all about like you play as an alchemist for one of the ruling houses in this world. And shortly after you graduate school, you get a job there, and you become a member of their aristocracy. But very shortly after, like one set of missions in, they get overthrown by one of the other houses. They kill your leader, and you guys run off and flee. And then the game becomes about creating a resistance to overthrow the group that overthrew your house. Because in the end, these were your friends, these were the people you cared about, these were the people that provided you with a job, and like you and the other folks that worked there for a while decide that like, fuck those guys, they did something super fucked up, let's get them back. So you overthrow the group that overthrew you. And so it's interesting. It's this whole idea of like, I added a lot of like, it hits, this game hits so many different themes that have been in all these other Zachtronics games and sort of mashes them together in one. It's really interesting. There's the idea of like, half the stuff you're transmuting is medicine to help the group that you were working for to begin with. You're providing them with like hangover cures, and you're providing them with like confidence potions and stuff like that, so that they like to help them with their issues and to provide them medicine. It's really funny because like half the shit you give them is just like water and booze, and you tell them it's some magic cure, which brings this like great question of like, do we trust the people that say it works? Like, I mean, it does work. Like, water will cure a hangover and booze will make you more confident, but like, you were expecting some sort of magic cure-all, and they just gave you like this thing that works.
I mean, like, the thing is that I know people like that in real life, because I went to a lot of trade shows, and there are people that just sell you water because normal people just don't drink water a lot. Sometimes they just forget, and then when they are sold it again later as a miracle cure, it works because they just don't drink enough water in the first place.
Yeah, so it's like there's that idea of like, do we trust the people that are giving us these cures because they say it works, when like it's probably just a placebo or something we should be having anyways, that's being marketed and sold to us as a magic cure-all or a fix. So that there's these really cool interesting themes on like medicine and those sort of industries. But then it hits these ideas of like the rich, and there's a line in there that's like, the rich don't understand the struggles of the common folk. Like, you as a character want to help out the city and the people, but the rich people were like, nah, we don't need to help them, they'll be fine, basically. So it's this really interesting thing of like, well, they need something and we can provide it, but why aren't we? Like, your character goes through that dilemma and asks those questions. And you pretty much get the answer of like, no, we need those people to be oppressed, kind of.
Well, I'm curious then. What is the Opus Magnum? What is it?
See, I it's a long game. There are like 6 chapters, and I made it to chapter 4. So I didn't finish, so I don't know what the entire storyline's about.
Okay.
But my guess, I mean, is that's what it's developing to, is you're creating the Opus Magnum. You're probably creating what I don't know what happens when you overthrow this government, or if it gets that far as overthrowing the aristocracy or whatever that overthrew you. But I'm assuming that's what it's building up to, is this sort of like idealized version of, you're getting here. This is the world now. We've created the ultimate cure for everything or whatever. And now we live in peace. I don't know. That is just an interpretation of what might be happening. Which I think is kind of interesting, because that gives you some insight of the way the game has been playing and my thought process as to where I'm at. So I don't know what the Opus Magnum is supposed to be in this game. I don't know if the Opus Magnum is supposed to be the machinery, the process, the transmutation of one thing into another, the ability to create and destroy like whatever we need. I don't know if it's that. I don't know if it's the Opus Magnum of like the ideas, because so much is hit on the ideas of education and the way we use education as a tool to empower us and as a tool to oppress people. And so I don't know, maybe the Opus Magnum is the enlightenment we receive and the ability to use that knowledge for a better purpose. It's really interesting. That's a great question, and I don't know yet. Yeah.
Hey man, I hear you. It sounds like a really rad game. And also easier to get into than his previous games from what I've heard.
Whoa, okay. I'm a blow your mind here for a second.
Yeah?
There's a whole ass tutorial in this game.
No way! They didn't even do a PDF this time?
No PDF. There's like 6 tutorial missions that you go through that teach you how to play this game one step at a time, which I was blown away by.
Revolutionary.
It was the most intricate Zachtronics tutorial I've ever played, and it set me up for success in that game. Like, I felt smart, I felt like I knew what I was doing, and like my machines were efficient and great, and like, oh, loved it. Great tutorial. Now that's to say, I think there's a lot of merit in the way that Zachtronics just like throws you in the deep end in most of his games. But yeah, it is a great entry to the series, just like Molex-SYNTEZ, and like entry into his work and his development, and it's much more parsable, and you actually understand what you're doing 90% of the time, which is great.
Was there a tutorial in Molek-SYNTEZ?
Like an expected Zachtronics tutorial. Like, there's one mission that's like, all right, this is how you place things. Go.
Oh, and then you're just good, and then you're good.
And then you're just good. That's all you need. Yeah.
Okay. Well.
Yeah, and in a sense, you don't need much more of that. And honestly, this game, Opus Magnum, probably didn't need much more of that. Because I found, separate from the games like Exapunks or IO, there's a sort of visualization to the coding that you do in this game. It reminds me a lot of like the Unreal Engine's blueprint editors, because you actually see the cause and effect immediately, right? You don't type a line and then question if that line was doing something wrong, if you use the right syntax, if it, you typed in the right numbers, whatever. It's very immediate. You add a button that says right, and you can watch the thing move right, and you can go, oh, I did that wrong, I needed left, and switch it out for a left. So it's very visual, and it's less codey and heady, and so I think it's a lot easier to parse that sort of code done as a visual language rather than a syntax-based language.
Right. And he kind of does a little bit of both in his games, which I like that he's sort of has so many different ways of approaching the same sort of ideas.
Absolutely. Which is kind of interesting, because like one of the things he hits on is like the ideas of doing things the old way versus the new way, and seeing that presented. I just came to this realization in his literal games, in that idea of like, we have done coding for so long as syntax, as like lines of code that we put on a piece of paper or on a computer that says this is what we do. That's the old way of doing it. Now we have visual code, and we can have a little right arrow that just says right, and the right means to do this thing in an order that's right, and that's the new way of coding. And like, perhaps the new way is better than the old way because it's more accessible and more people can do it, and it brings more people in, and now that it's not as hard to understand and comprehend, it makes it more available for everyone, and that availability allows more creation.
And it's talking like what you're saying. It's talking about video games in general. Like I think about like the system that like you have been toying with. The Unreal Engine, and how it has like the drag and drop programming system, and like how much of our world is going to be determined by drag and drop type systems in the future.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to understand the complexity, because we have the tools to make it simple and easy, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, don't demonize that. Don't say that's a bad way of doing that, because it's more effective. It gets more people involved. Like,
that's fascinating.
It's really interesting. I just made that connection right now with the old ways versus the new ways, and literally seeing that dichotomy in his games and with coding itself. And I think that's fucking genius, Zach. I don't know if you're doing that on purpose, but if not, It's fucking genius.
Zach, buddy, you're a genius. You're a fucking genius. We're sucking your dick here. Come on a podcast. We're waiting for you.
Come on. I want to talk about this and the future of coding and technology and like, what are we going to do when our worlds are automated? It's fucking gatekeeping, right? Like you keep things done in a hard to understand, complex, confusing syntax, and it makes it less accessible for more people. So more people end up unable to fulfill the roles that we need when it comes to automation. Like if no one can code, then only 6 people get to code.
And then it gets it gets held into like the sort of elites. Like
yeah. Oh man, this is. Oh, we're getting real deep into this. I fucking love it. There was this great quote in his thing that like, the good students spent time studying modern techniques, not historical ones.
That's
and I think
true, man.
I think that's so valid and so true. Like, I
like
have
this. You can learn only so much from like learning from history because. We outgrow history. Like a lot of times. I mean, go ahead.
Oh, I have this very adamant belief, and I might catch a lot of flack for this, but I believe it, and I think it's true that history is a tool of oppression. We teach certain things, we teach them a certain way in order to keep people behaving and acting in certain ways, right? Like we don't teach that Martin Luther King was a socialist. We teach that he was a radical, racially charged, free thinker. Not that he was a socialist and believed capitalism was a tool of oppression and that we used minorities as scapegoats for that oppression so that we could keep labor low and stuff like that. Like we don't teach that because we don't want people to know the flaws of the system. We don't want people to think that thinking that way is good. So the history we use, the things we teach, it's all designed to control people in a certain way. Like
I think about like gay erasure. And like the idea that like an entire like sect of people that like totally exist now, so obviously they would have existed hundreds of years ago, like, and they're just wiped from history books because modern day historians decided they didn't want to write about it because it was a little gross.
The whole idea that we teach that the whole Paleolithic era was done with like supply and demand trading when there's literally like no evidence of it, and we just made that assumption that because we used the capitalist model they must have too. But you'd assume that if someone was trading 6 grains of rice for 3 bottles of water that they'd have documented that somewhere, but no one did.
Yeah, no, I mean. It's just like how we think about history is rooted so much in how we interpret the present.
Yeah. And so like that idea of the more time you spend studying the historical methods and tools and stuff, it's the more that you are being stuck in that box. Like study what's happening now, study the modern times, study and respond to that. And that is what makes you a better creator, a smarter thinker. Like that is what's more important than looking back, is looking at current times.
Living on the
and the way we're
edge
doing things now.
Because there's so much of the human experience that's changing with technology, and I feel like you have to go with the times in order to like keep up with it. Like VR is so huge right now, and it wasn't a couple years ago. And like just the
we have access to the entirety of human knowledge in our pockets. Like that is something that 10, 15, 20 years ago, no one could have imagined.
And
so
I have
like
a calculator in my pocket. Fuck you, 8th grade math teacher.
so like learning to do math by hand literally does you no good. You will never be in a situation where you don't have a calculator. Teach people the modern tools rather than old tools. Like,
yeah, shit, man.
Another huge tangent. Man, we are going off on them this episode.
A hell of a tangent. I mean, like, I'm just going to say, before we move on to the extras,
you just cut out hard.
Oh,
what was that?
Before we move on to the extras here, I just wanted to ask, do you recommend it? Do you recommend Opus Magnum?
I do. I will never not recommend a Zachatronics game. They are incredible. This man is fucking Picasso of a generation, and people don't even realize it yet.
Dude, he made Minecraft and no one even knows. He made
Minecraft and no one even knows.
Dude, this guy's great. But you know who else is great? The Divinoid developers. It's going to go right into the extras for this month. There are a couple of free things that you got. One of them was Divinoids, made by Catpad. It is a roguelite rampage-style beat-em-up game where you play as mecha space gods, and you destroy everything on a whole entire solar system worth of planets. It's awesome! It's so fun to play as a bad guy, especially, like, the super bad guy, and just explode everything. It's like, I don't know if you ever played Rampage, but like those old school games where it's just all about destroying buildings and destroying things. It's just cathartic, man. Just like knocking over a bunch of dominoes.
To the super young listeners, Rampage the movie was based off the Rampage game. And if you go back and play the Rampage game, your response will be, how the hell did they make a movie based on this? It is just an ape smashing a building.
I said that about Battleship. I don't know how that ever happened.
Coming soon to a theater near you. Connect 4, the movie.
Candyland, the movie.
Yo, Candyland would be a good horror film.
Oh, fuck. Shoots and Ladders, a horror movie. You don't know where the shoots and ladders go. Okay, but anyway, back to Divinoids. So, there's only like 3 characters, but they're all really fun to play as. One of them is like Medusa, and she has this alternate form where she can turn into a snake and slither up buildings. Another character is like a mecha dude, and he can turn into a lion and jump around. And then the final person is like this pharaoh dude who has like this long distance beam. And his other form is like a phoenix. So every character has like sort of like a standstill, like long range projectile type mode, and also like a really fast melee mode where they can use to kind of like maneuver themselves and jump around, and go and jump through all the different buildings to destroy them. This game has like character building and progression a little bit, and when you die, you start over from the beginning. And it also has that sort of like Binding of Isaac thing where you unlock more as you go. Actually, I'd say it's almost more like Risk of Rain, really, where like there's like this more items that you can unlock that you'll find on later playthroughs of the game, or options to start off on like later planets as opposed to an earlier planet.
I like that.
Yeah, and just the
Have
fact
I? I don't think I've ever mentioned, but roguelikes and roguelites are my favorite fucking genre. Just so you know.
Oh, totally. You gotta play this game, man. And it like, Switch release when? Because this is such a perfect game for the Switch with its co-op multiplayer aspect, too. I just am waiting for this game to come out on Switch because I will absolutely play the shit out of it. This game doesn't have much to say in terms of story, but it's just like a good time, man. I loved it.
The Switch is such a good roguelike machine.
It is, especially for co-op roguelikes, man. Oh, yeah. And the other game that we got here is also a roguelike, but it's a much different one. This one is called Ring of Pain. It's just the demo. It's developed by Simon Boxer and Twice Different, who are soon to be releasing a game called Dungeon Experience that's completely unrelated. This is a roguelite card-based dungeon crawler.
I love these games.
Yeah.
I was playing so much Slay the Spire when it came out.
Oh, yeah? You'd probably love this game then, honestly.
Let's hit it. Let's hear about it real quick.
I don't know how to describe this game too much other than, like, you sort of have, like, 2 cards to pick from on, like, the left and the right, and you kind of have to, like, eliminate cards on either side until you get to an exit. So if you have, like, an enemy on your right, you can click on it, and then you'll fight it, and then that'll reduce your health a little bit, but then you have a chance of, like, running into health potions or different things like that. And you sort of equip your character and sort them out in a whole bunch of different things until you get to the end of the ring, and then you go off against this, like, sort of final challenge, which I can't recall what it was, actually, off the top of my head, but I did do it after, like, 2 or 3 tries. It wasn't too hard. The only thing is that it kind of is a little bit more reliant on randomness rather than skill. I think once you learn how to play optimally, it's just kind of a game of, like, playing it over and over again until you get, like, the right sort of drops that you need.
Like a lot of roguelikes, honestly.
Yeah, but I mean, for a card-based one, especially, like, with no gameplay other than just sort of, like, picking and choosing, it didn't jive with me as much. But if that sounds like the kind of thing that you'd be into, I wholly recommend trying this game out. I mean, it took, like, a couple of minutes for me to play, and it was a great little distraction for, like, 30 minutes. So, absolutely give it a try.
Do you think this was more of, like, a proof of concept kind of demo thing than less necessarily, like, a full-fledged game? Like they have this idea
Yeah.
that they want to implement in something larger, probably.
That's probably it. They have like a Steam page, and this goes for Divinoids as well. They both got Discord, Steam, and Twitter links that you can go and like follow them on all the different places to sort of see the development and sort of watch how it's going along so far. But yeah, I wasn't super into it. I feel like other people would be.
Okay. Well, that's it. We got to the end. Jesus.
Whoa! Man.
Sorry for the tangents and all the discussion of today's times and what's going on. Like,
That's fine.
but these games, I mean, I think that's such a powerful like image of these games and how good they are. Like this bundle especially, and like what they're doing and talking about, and like it's a good month, I think.
I really enjoy just having games that I've never heard about thrown onto my plate and asked to play them. Like, I really dig that, because I would not have played most of these games otherwise.
Absolutely. I never would have tried out Bard's Tale, and like,
Yeah,
fuck.
Shoppe Keep. I never would have touched it with a 1,000-yard pull. But I liked it a lot.
So top games of the month?
Top games of the month. I'm gonna be a bastard and pick your game, which is Hitman 2.
Fair enough. I think Hitman 2 has a lot of merit to be the top game, but I, just given everything in the world, I have to say the Bard's Tale 4, like, play that game and think about our actions.
That shocks me, man. I never expected that, especially after you told me how long it took you to like even start playing the game. I would have never expected it to turn out to be like your game of the month.
I fully picked up the game expecting to play it for 20 minutes, put it down, and then just say it was all right. But it sucked me in. I've been itching to play it more, honestly.
That's cool, man.
I want these stupid paladins to get their comeuppance.
And I'm still going to get around to playing the final act of Nightcall at some point as well. I told myself I was going to do that. But yeah, like from the first episode, that was a thing that I touched on that I said I wanted to come back to. I still have it installed. Still want to go back to it.
What else have you been playing this month?
Well, there's another kind of visual novel game that I've been playing, which is Phoenix Wright Spirits of Justice. It's a game that my brother has on his 3DS. Downloaded, and because I'm living with him in close quarters, now is the best time possible to play from his DS. So I've been going through that. I'm on the final chapter, and that game is super cool. It's all about like these trials in a country where like defense lawyers are given the same sentence as the people that they are defending, and so it's like a huge risk to try to defend anyone, and no one's defended anyone in like 20 years since the act was first announced. So it's got like really high stakes, and I love the characters in it. I have since I was a kid. I love detective games like that, so that's been my jam, but also Animal Crossing.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm still working on my communist hell in Animal Crossing.
Yeah, we both got a communist hell going on. Well, actually, yours more hell than mine. Mine is very pleasant.
You know, I like to say mine's paradise, but
production paradise.
it's efficient as fuck. I'll tell you what.
You scare me, okay? Like,
look, I understand the capitalist model. I get it.
And like every room of your house is terrifying to me, and for different reasons.
Yo, I just revised my top room. It's so great. It is just a Scrooge McDuck vault now. It's got a beautiful money floor, it's got golden walls, and it's got piles of 99,000 bells just across the whole fucking thing.
Oh god, you capitalist bastard. And you fucking time traveling cheating bastard too.
I didn't time travel.
You didn't?
I only time traveled for you. No. I got fucking lucky on my first stock market week.
Wow. I had no idea. I thought that you were like manipulating the stock market, but now that I think about it, there's no real way to do that if you're only playing with one person.
I farmed my ass off to make 1 million bells by the first weekend. I spent it all on the stock markets, and my first fucking Wednesday, and my first Wednesday, the motherfucker sold it for fucking 600 bells, and I was like, cool, done. I beat Animal Crossing.
Meanwhile, in my town, my bells never reach above fucking 55. I swear to God.
I have paid for it dearly. The only way I've been able to sell my bells in the next few weeks have been like going to friends' places, like.
Fucking hell, man. That's so funny, though.
Yeah, so I just accumulated a small fortune, invested it entirely to begin with, and got rich, and now I never have to worry about money again.
There you go, man. There you go. Figuring things out.
But I've been playing a shit ton of Warzone, too.
Yeah. We're playing a little bit of that
It's
with you
just-
too. I tried it out for the first time.
Yeah, it was so much. We got a win on our like second game.
Yeah, that was cool. What the hell?
It was so good. We fucking killed it. And like, oh, I love that game. It's so much fun. Battle royales are amazing. We need more of them.
I'm actually not a big fan of battle royales, believe it or not. I
Yeah?
love, like, as a literary genre, the idea of a battle royale. It's like actually one of my favorite concepts to like read about.
Yeah.
Like Battle Royale is like one of my favorite movies. Not necessarily like my favorite, but it's up there. And it's just like violent, bloody, entertaining, and a bunch of kids forced to kill each other.
Is the reason you don't like the video game battle royale just because like it's like first person shooter genre, or you don't like the like loot and gear up, or is it just like it lacks a storyline?
I think there's two things. The first thing is that there's just not enough going on at any given point. And to an extent, that's like a good thing. Like it adds like a thriller sort of aspect to it. Like that's
Yeah.
what PlayerUnknown's is really good for. But at the same time, I just hate the feeling of being sniped from across the map and having no real control over it. And like just having like such a long period of suspense lead to such a disappointing sort of end.
Okay, that's fair.
So in that sense, and also like I often end up dying, and so it's very stressful. And I really like Warzone because you're basically always doing something. When you die, you have the option to come back at the gulag, and like, you know, if you actually die later, then you can have a chance to be resurrected later, and it's like your party is never fully down until everyone's down. And I like
And
that.
even when you're dead, you can just like watch the map and ping enemies for people and stuff.
Yeah, so you can still be helpful.
Yeah, it's great.
So-
I think it fixes a lot of issues that some of the other games have had in the battle royale genre. I love it. I've been playing way too much of it, but we got to get those dubs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got some free stuff. Free stuff to look out for.
All right, now the part that you all have skipped to. Here's the free games.
Yeah. I'm sure that there'll be somebody eventually that just skips only to these, but I mean, the thing is, it'll be outdated at a certain point. So,
I mean, I add links to all the free shit in the description, so like if they're listening, then they're listening, because like they could just
if they're
find
listening,
it in
then
the link.
you just go to the description. Yeah.
We appreciate. Oh, I want to do something this week. I just thought of this idea. We're gonna throw it in if you're cool with it.
Really, hit me with it.
You know, I want to pose a question to our listeners.
Okay, like a discussion question. I like that.
Yeah, like a hit us up with your answers, and we'll chat about them a little bit on the next episode, and you
Hit
know,
us up on our
'cause-
Discord, then on our Twitter, and we'll talk about what we talked about.
Exactly. The question I want to pose this week is totally unrelated to Ludo narratives and philosophical discussions. We had a lot of sequels, and like the fourth and the fifth and the second, and like, what game do you want to see with another one made?
Oh, I already have an answer.
Yeah? Do you want to talk about
Yeah.
it this week? What's your answer?
I mean, this is just my answer, so...
What is
It
it?
is because of a Twitter poll that came up recently that was like, which of these franchises would you resurrect? Ape Escape. I would resurrect Ape Escape so
Aw.
fucking quick and so fucking hard. I love the Ape Escape games,
I miss
dude.
Ape Escape. Those games were so good. You want to know what mine is?
Yeah.
Viva Pinata.
Oh, you're a Viva Pinata stan. Oh, those games are good.
So yeah, shoot us a comment, leave a post in our show discussion on the Discord. What game do you guys want to see another one made for the franchise?
Yeah.
Maybe if we create a coalition, we can bug enough developers to make Viva Pinata 2.
We'll start a petition. A
For free
change.org
games.
petition. All right.
So this week, Unreal Store has Just Cause 4 and Wheels of Aurelia. Coming up next is For the King.
Ooh. I
Don't
like
know
Just
what it
Cause 4.
is.
That's a good get.
I wasn't crazy about Just Cause.
I like the Just Cause games in multiplayer the most, which is funny
Fair.
because only like 2 I think is multiplayer. But like it is so fun to go on like road trips with friends.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
You want to hit up the next ones?
Sure. PSN's Stay at Home campaign that they have going on, which you actually I think know more than I do, but they're giving away the Uncharted collection in Journey. What?
What?
That's like a good what? That's awesome. I love
Those are-
both of those games.
Phenomenal games to stay at home with. Like,
Yeah.
I never played Journey, but I'm going to now. So, like, if anyone wants to hit us up, I will drop
Ugh.
my gamer tag in the show description too.
You actually
Not
can't.
gamertag, PSN.
You can't do that. Journey is unique because the multiplayer they only show you the gamer tags after you're done playing.
Oh, fair point. Fair point. See, I've never played it, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Rip.
It matches you with random people, and the only way you can communicate with them is just like little pings. So like,
Love it.
It makes multiplayer bearable because you don't hear like a 14-year-old teenager or like an angsty like 54-year-old or whatever on the other side of the line like bringing down like the whole experience. It's just like the pure experience of having someone else there and just like going on a journey with them.
I love that. So wholesome.
Great.
Xbox right now is giving out Crackdown, Crackdown 2, and 2 Human.
Ooh.
And I figured a notable note, since Hitman 2 was one of the games this week, Android has Hitman Go for free right now as well. So
that's really cool, actually. I didn't know that.
If you want to hit that up, it's mobile Hitman, so why not? There's an article on GameSpot that will link in the show description with a whole list of like 40 free games right now. It's also in our Unfettered Commodities channel in the Discord, so if you want to join and check it out there, lots of free shit right now. Corporations are having our backs a little bit, I guess. Kind of.
Giving you entertainment to keep you going in the midst of this crazy, insane global pandemic.
Yeah.
Other than that, though, that's been the show, man.
Did we figure out an outro? I feel like we talked about something last week, but I forgot what it was.
You know, I don't remember what it was either. Like,
fuck.
Maybe it was... No. Do you think we could just end it?
No, I swear we came up with something really good, and I was like, I want to do that. That's a genius idea. It was your idea.
It was a genius idea because it came from me, and because of that, it is also gone because my brain keeps information.
No, but I'm 100% you sent it to me on Discord, so I'm scrolling through our Discord chat right now to find it.
Okay, cool. I'll just sit here until you find it. Oh my god. Oh my god, I can't believe we forgot. I can't believe it. We forgot to plug ourselves, dude.
Oh, Jesus,
my god.
No.
Dude, okay, you have to follow us on Twitter. You have to follow us on the Reddit. Do we have Reddit yet?
We have a Reddit. Yes,
okay,
we have a Reddit.
Yeah. We go follow us on the Reddit. Go follow us on Discord, and then follow us and like and comment and subscribe.
Like, comment, subscribe. Oh, shit. Giveaways. Every month we're gonna give away some games from the bundle. Tweet at Bundle Bourgeoisie for a chance to win a game. What else? Stay classy, Chicago.